Why I do what I do. I was born Samia Assad Yahya, a strange name in the United States in 1974. I was born to an American mother and a Lebanese father who ended up leaving when I was about 1.5. He did a voluntary deportation by giving his green card to the government and in exchange for a plane ticket. And unknowingly, he did not, or he did not know that he was never going to be able to return to the United States. Luckily for me, my grandparents lived in Vermont, where my parents had moved. And so I spent the next few years with them, most of the time that between that and daycare. I spent a lot of nights with them and I learned so many things from them. Most of my memories until I was 5 are with my grandparents. And they really informed the way that I live my life today. They had beauty around them, they gardened, they had flowers and vegetable gardens and baked bread and mowed their own grass. And my grandmother made a lot of her own clothes. And so I really learned that you could do kind of whatever you needed to do if you had to do it. I was 5. We moved, my mother and I, after she graduated from college, we moved to Canada. This was the end of my comfy lifestyle in Vermont with my grandparents. And it was life. There was a lot of spending time alone. When I was 7, she remarried. But even though she remarried, it was still a very kind of lonely life for me because my parents were both in grad school and I became a latchkey kid. If I needed something, I did it myself most of the time. And luckily, from my grandparents, I kind of knew that I could do anything I needed to take care of myself. But unfortunately, I kept getting the message that when I made kind of big, important decisions, that they were wrong decisions. And even though they really weren't, when I look back on it, I started to have a distrust for myself. When I was in grade 7, a lot of things happened that year. I broke my ankle, I got my period for the first time, and I had a new sister all in 1 week. A couple months before this picture, my stepfather adopted me. And unfortunately for my father, because there was a civil war in Lebanon, the period to contest the adoption was long overdue at the 2-year mark when he actually got the mail. And a few months after this picture, I started getting bullied by a girl who kind of targeted me because I had been sticking up for someone she was trying to make fun of. And so the only way to end this bullying was we ended up having to get a restraining order on her. She had threatened my life more than once and would chase me home. It was terrifying. And she left an indelible mark on me. There was one event that happened in a public library, and I forever had a really hard time looking up information. And I really also had an aversion to forming my own opinions because I didn't want to have to say anything. I didn't want to have to stick up for anyone. I didn't want to have to make decisions because something would either be wrong or I would be criticized. Then I was 15. This is the last Christmas I spent with my nuclear family, my stepfather, sister, and mother all together. My stepfather left a couple of months after this picture and moved in with a woman who was old enough to be my big sister. And that really ended that relationship. And luckily, through all of this, I still had a great relationship with my grandparents, but wasn't able to see them very often. So to um, right after college, I took a course, and I think I got this, you know, confidence in thinking I could do anything as long as I kept my mouth shut. Um, I took a very short course and missed the first day of the course to teach English as a second language, which was really not not anything that you could go start a career with. But I turned it into a 3-year journey around the world, traveling and teaching English as a second language, and taught at international schools. And then after 8 months of being in Korea, I ended up flying home because my grandmother had had a stroke. And the one day in the entire year of 1998 that I was in Canada, I got a phone call asking if I was interested in at, working in Abu Dhabi, a place that no one had heard of in 1998. No one had even heard of Dubai in 1998. But I knew it was in the Middle East and it was closer to Lebanon, and I had always wanted to meet my father, so I decided to quit my job in Korea and I moved to Abu Dhabi. A year and a half later, I was given the opportunity to fly to Lebanon. And so I informed my mother that I would be in Beirut. 2 days later, she called some relatives and let them know let them know that I would be in Beirut. And so I had literally no idea what would happen. I got to the airport. My father was there with my 6 half siblings and a bunch of other relatives. It was a moment I had waited for my whole life, and the only thing I can say is that I was really just in shock. It took time for emotion to settle in, but it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I maintained a relationship with him, and he, just like my grandparents, was eager to teach me everything he knew. He was like the witch doctor. People had something wrong with them, they would come to him and he would make them medicine. He showed me how to pick herbs in the mountains and make distillations of herbal medicines, and he was a jack of all trades and could really do anything. But unfortunately, in 2007, he died unexpectedly of an aortic aneurysm. But today, I have my own children, and I try the best I can to teach them the kinds of things that my grandparents taught me. I pride myself in having them be independent and being able to know how to do things. I became, because of the amount of time I spent alone, a consummate problem solver. And now, as a naturopathic doctor, I see myself as someone who could solve pretty much any problem. And if I know I can't solve their problem, I know who to send them to. So all the life experiences that I've had have informed the way that I live now. I really pride myself on being a teacher, which is actually what doctor means in Latin. And I I love for people to have the confidence to know that they can do anything if they need to do it. And that's why I do what I do.